Okay, let's get that started. Hopefully that's working fine. Good morning, Connie. Maybe. Thank you for the first. How are you doing today, guys? No. I mean the database system is starting up. Stop that running. Feeling lazy should start working. Nah. It's overrated. Just give it a miss. I give you permission. It's all good. Why are you using my emoji on your stream? Because I don't have emojis that represent hi. The best one is still Stonies for hi. So please get some animated hot dogs. Yeah, I don't have any emojis. We've not understood this by now. I am a unimaginative person. Harish, how are you doing? How are things? Just Thursday. Okay, so that's how I say hi. Okay, so last night I got um, the task stuff working a little better. It's not perfect, um, but it generally works. So the backlog. So now development backlog will only show items that are in backlog or ready for development, unattached to a sprint. So this is actually now a backlog. You can't assign a sprint to a backlogged item. Once you mark something as ready for development, you can assign a sprint to it. Once you save the sprint, it will move out of here, in theory, and then appear in the boards, right? So in general, that's working. It's not perfect. It still needs some tweaks. We were having a heck of a time getting Claude to actually do anything to correct this behavior. So when if I move this back to backlog, this should remove it from the sprint, move it into the backlog. Um, but obviously, there's a kind of the optimistic update of I've got to do the things that I need to do on the client to represent the state, um, because that's going to be handled by the server side ultimately. So I've got to represent what it should be when it comes back around, and it does. The server side does what it does. So if I say this is backlogged, it will remove sprint one for me. Right? I can't remove sprint one now. I can't change what sprint this is in when it's in a sprint. So the best I can do is move it to backlog and then do it again. However, from the UI perspective, it doesn't reappear in the backlog until it's gone full circle. So that's fine for now. I'm not going to stress over that. That's a for later refinement as we're going through the usage of the application. So now with the go to initiatives, backlog, release management, and delivery visibility, there's these 4 components to this release management piece. Task model enhancements is the first piece of this. So update the task UI to reflect the valid transitions only. Done. Add state transition validations to task API. Done. Define and document allowed state transitions. It's documented in code. And I say it's documented in code in that if I go to this object, those are the possible values for task status, and those are the valid transitions. So a backlog item can go only to ready for development. Ready for development can go to backlog, in progress, or complete. In progress can go to complete. Complete can go to complete. And actually, that's probably invalid. That can go ready for development. um, or backlog. Actually, that's the true transition there. Um, Twitch doing stunning again. Twitch decides that nougat is an actual banned word, so it will always hold the message. I think VIPs can use the word nougat, but yeah. I have a question regarding nougats. Why do we keep nougats? Why can't we just dump everything into the main solution other than not wanting to make the main repo bloated? Are there any other good reasons for doing this? Um, um, I mean, if I'm building a library, so there's several libraries I've built with um, Liquid Sky, such as the the Kafka pieces, the um, the mediator extensions. Those libraries are useful to me, but I don't want them in the main code base because to me they kind of have to stand alone as behavioral pieces. And if you mix them in with your main source code, if someone comes along, the likelihood is they could go and change the way that behaves and break things. So it's a more deliberate effort. Um, it does keep it cleaner. It does keep like this is a project that you shouldn't have to change very often, so you can share those um, between different projects. So, for example, Liquid Sky is one part of Kaizu. Liquid Sky is the front end facing piece. Control Tower is the back end piece. Control Tower uses those same libraries, but Control Tower is a completely separate code base built using this shared project because this has to change because messages share. So I use this method for sharing common code, but then those projects can be used and updated in the other side and still used without having that code maintained in two places, all those tight couplings. And to me, it's more about um, 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 just organizing the code properly, just making sure that this code that you shouldn't have to touch very often doesn't get some weird refactoring or someone, oh, I need to do this in this situation, so I'll add some code into that library to handle this. So it kind of separates those. What is the code that the developers control when they're developing the application versus what is the developer what is a supporting code doing? So yeah. Oh, did that actually get delivered? Yes, that did. Okay, cool. But yeah, maybe he's right as well. The more code you have in the code base, the more you have to maintain. So yeah, there's libraries, and that's how I've still shared some components of what I've done here that may be useful. Things like the mediator extensions to make outbots and stuff work for mediator, which some might consider kind of a bad pattern. Um, but the outbots for Kafka, all those pieces, and I will do the inbox soon. Um, but yeah, those are separate libraries that are not the focus of this application. They're just kind of supporting. It does create some problems though. So recently I made changes to one of those libraries and I pushed to NuGet as part of the workflow. And then I waited and I waited and I waited, and it was over 2 hours before they were actually available from NuGet, um, from the cache. Even though I cleared my cache out locally, I repulled all the NuGet packages, which is now several gig of stuff on my machine. I repulled all the NuGet packages and nothing. So the recommendation there was to basically put a GitHub NuGet, use GitHub's NuGet as an interim one. So I pushed to that as well, and now my local machine can be set to pull from that, so it makes it more available. So that's normally one of the pain points that people hit when they're using packages as part of the main development, is the inability to necessarily change that too quick. Oh, sorry. For some reason it will not let you say NuGet. We have like 100 NuGets. Every time I had to make a change in NuGet, I was like, why? Because there's so much friction in updating the version, updating the transitive dependencies. And I forget 100? That seems excessive. That seems like someone went crazy on the modularity. Um, yeah, that might be just the organization of that code. 100 plus different packages. Imagine you create custom piece of code and silly. Imagine you create custom piece of code. Let's choose compression as an example, and you create that as a NuGet package, and then you use that NuGet package in 3 other applications to compress files. When you discover a bug, you fix the NuGet package and update the 3 other applications. If you duplicate that code through 3 applications, then you need to fix the bug in 3 places. Yeah, that's a. Yeah. Oh, that sounds like your application's not very optimal. Ian, hello, by the way. Um, I don't know what the word is that you use there, but it definitely Twitch decided that that was not a word it was willing to show. Okay, so um, implement unique reference generation, display task identifier and task details. Um, um, and um, so by the way, yeah, that's why I went there. Right, I've defined I've documented in code. That's perfectly fine for me. That transition is easily understandable. I can reference that. Hey, what's allowed and what the possible values. That's perfectly fine for me. Um, in the meantime, someone would update the package and get hit by conflicts. I mean, it does sound very. If your CI build is taking an hour and you have 100 plus NuGets, either that application is bigger than any other application I've ever seen, or it's too complicated. Unless you are building, you know, .NET. In which case, wow, I can get all the name changes happening in Microsoft. It's weird that C Sharp's package manager is the same. um, so we got the task identifier, we got the implement unique task reference generation, display dependency warning. So this one is the next one, task direct dependencies. So this is the ability to say, hey, this task has some dependencies on other things. We actually have this for planning for deliverables. So on a deliverable, you can take your sweet time to load. That's fine. You can hit here and you can say dependencies, right? So you can actually search for oh, you might be able to search for. That's interesting. That's broken now. Awesome. So you might be able to search for dependencies. Again, I'm not going down that path right this second. I'm trying to fix that one. Otherwise, I'll be here like tweaking and fixing. How it big even my 64 gig RAM ThinkPad can't properly open the main solution in 2. Wow. Yeah. Uh, that sounds like your project might be a little bit in need of uh, a little bit more organization. Okay, so let's not try and tackle that, but I need to record that somewhere. Stony, hello. How you doing? Yeah. Oh yeah, it's looking pretty bright today, isn't it? Is that the sun? What is that? Hold on. That made no difference. Oop. Okay. So let's get on to display dependency. One is on task view. So actually we need to do build dependency selection on task UI. So what we need to do here is get a query that will fetch all tasks that are in the same project as. Do we want the same project? No, we want it. We need to be able to search on tasks. We don't want to limit the selection. So let's do this. Let's go back to in progress planning backlog. Bring up this. Actually, let's bring up the dialog first. Review. With that, Figma. Oh, see now. I can't win with the light. The light in this room is just ridiculous. It's fine. So I need that. Figma is a Figma desktop app. What we're going to do here is feed this. Yeah. Paste that in there. Paste that in there. I want to create a new field. Like now, right this second, all I'm going to do is say that these are dependencies. I'm not going to say, oh, this has to be done first, that has to be done before that. Like try and create that. I'm just going to say there's dependencies. Same way I'm meant to do on these deliverables, which clearly isn't working right now. Which allow me to search and associate one or many tasks against this task as dependencies. Now we're getting into the realm of this dialogue probably getting a little bit too big, but we'll find out. 5 stream streak. Thank you very much, Tony. And to be a good streamer, remember that there are other people who stream in this stream. If you haven't checked out maybe yet, I would highly recommend it. Don't know what schedule he's on right this second, but You could go there and see Barely Fit, which is a fitness application. You could go see game programming. You could go see uh, building AI tools, all manner of things. Exciting times. No two streams are alike, and there's always chaos. Waiting for things and stuff. Um, okay, so what I'm going to do here is this is going to be planning dashboard. Yes. Now, not always, but right now, a hot dog, and it's funny. And makes me think of Thomas the Tank Engine. um, what I'm starting to learn is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use the app to try and track some of these changes. And I'm trying to learn more about my navigation of the app. Like I'm looking for what do I need to do next, and I'm not finding that. So is that my workflow, or is that a problem with the application design that I can't find that? Is it just I can't remember the name of what I'm looking for? So yeah, task direct dependencies. So this is going to be a new branch, feature, task. And I'm actually going to remember to do this on the other one. Now, chances of Figma having got something useful here. Oh, best option after description before status. This creates a logical flow where you define what the task is, then what it depends on, followed by how to execute it. Alternative after description before last updated. This groups it with the other relational metadata fields, keeping the core execution fields together at the top. Um, so that's actually something Jira does, by the way. Jira does place that pretty high up, the dependencies. It's annoying because I think it's after the description, but it's above the description or something like that. It's really close to the point where when you are using tab, it actually puts a pop-up there, which you have to clear out the way to move properly. So if you don't want to associate it, it's kind of annoying. Wow. Not a single viewer. It's unusual. Oh. So I don't know what it is, but if I open Amazon Video, like if I go to the website for Amazon, I go to Prime Video, it does something which makes one of my monitors turn off. YouTube normally gets at least one or two spikes by now, but YouTube's completely flat. I do check these things. Oh, there you go. Who did it? Um, okay, here we go. There we go. So that's nice. I actually like that. And it's getting pretty close to staying consistent with its behavior. That's pretty cool. So now we'll share that, save that, copy link. Um, we're going to start. On tasks. So it's important to be able to do this because let's say as a development team, thanks, Sally, appreciate it. As a development team, you've got all these tasks, right? And they're technical in nature. That's the purpose of them. If we don't put the dependencies in there and then we build a release, yeah, YouTube really isn't made for streaming, is it? It can be higher quality though, which is pretty cool. But anyway, the product manager says, "Oh, I want this and this and this as part of my release," but they don't realize there's dependencies there. So this gives us the way to describe that and to put that warning in there that, by the way, this release might not be ready to go. Now, the product manager isn't going to do the release, but it does mean that someone who isn't aware of all the different um, pieces of the task, so a team lead or a manager, a tech manager, will at least have that warning. I don't often get called that anymore. That's interesting. There's certain ways that people call, like, use your name in different countries. That's kind of interesting. So the UK and Australia will use Tesla. There's a racing YouTuber I go and watch sometimes, and that's how he greets me. Our focus right now is on introducing dependency on tasks as part of warning users when they go to plan a release that there are other tasks actually start waiting. But for now, go to there. The one thing I don't like about this, and I'm open to ideas if anyone has them, is this pushes the screen down, right? So if I do the screen shifts, and that always feels bad to me, right? Now, I'm not focusing on this from an accessibility perspective right this second. That's got to be a separate path entirely. I've got to get the functionality in here. Um, so, but I can, but now that screen shifts, and that always feels jarring. How do you feel about that? So, like the screen shifts. So the dependencies tablet lives here. If I do that, screen shifts up. Now the other option is to put them in line here and keep moving them forward, but then you end up with this shifting down once you go past like 2, right? So you end up with that shift anyway. So you put the selections below. Interesting. I believe Jira does that. Can't log into Jira though to test that, and I'm not mimicking Jira's UI. I'm just saying that I believe that's what happens if my memory is not playing tricks. Here we hope that Claude's awake today, not taking 3 hours to do everything. I mean, I personally just don't like the shift of the UI, but I don't see any better option there. Yeah, let's see what it implements, because what Claude um, the UI shift is unavoidable. Yeah, what Claude interprets this as won't be this, because I mean, this is what it's got there. Uh, implementation review. That's what the actual dialogue looks like. So yeah, Magnets, hello, how you doing? So it'll stick it in there somewhere, but let's find out. I mean, overall, things are moving along, right? Things are getting better. I'm not expecting perfection. I'm not chasing perfection on this right this second, because I'll just drive myself crazy trying to make every little screen work perfectly. Once the functionality is in there, I can come back and refine everything bit by bit as I do passes. And also, I've got to be careful I don't get into a pattern of building the system that suits what I'm doing or how I'm working, because I'm not the target audience for this, right? As a solo developer, this is actually not a product necessarily for me. This is a product for a team of people working together to try and smooth out the requirements gathering to delivery path. So I got to be careful I don't try and stick in stuff that suits my needs versus everyone else's. So part of that will be getting this to an actual server soon and getting that testable. We'll see what that costs. I experimented with DigitalOcean using their servers with my game library, and that's costing $25 a month for a Postgres server. I don't know whether you get charged per. I don't know how many databases you can have with that. I don't know whether it's just one database though. That would be bad. I can't have everything. I've got several databases, right? I need a server, not a thing. But then I've got a Ubuntu based server running Docker, which Pod helped me out with, and that runs the back end and the front end for the game library, and that's total like $25 a month. OVHBML at £18 a month and far more powerful. Right, but also don't want stuff that's based in Europe. And all that's other side of the world. They don't have US. A lot of those cheaper, um, where are locations? Oh, Canada. Sorry, they have Canadian. My apologies. 15.19 a month. What's that in real money? Interesting. Something feels very specific here though, because they don't have US at all. It's Canada. And if that's Canadian dollars, yeah, interesting. There's no proxmox on it. Because I mean, all this is clearly running on one machine right now, right? I don't, for the testing purposes, I'm happy to deploy it and get it tested on um, on that sort of server. So yeah, it's warm in here, dogs. Um, DigitalOcean is fine; it's just expensive. Well, again, I used the game library app as a test, right? I was like, hey, what is best for this? And went through some questions. Like DigitalOcean is nice and simple, and it was really simple. I mean, I got the guide together to do it, and it was really simple to deploy, to get the the website set up and have it hooked into a GitHub pipeline. So now I just push changes to GitHub, and all that everything's there all the time. Um, the database migrations and all run fine. That's perfectly good. Um, so I have no issue with it. Um, but yeah, I want to do as little maintenance as possible. That's the problem. Once I get this to work, I want to be able to say, okay, we'll push into the main branch, and now it's released. Um, um, or however I do release management. But I want like a proper CI/CD process where once it's set up, I don't have to do anything, and that's kind of the goal. I know that's going to be some learning on my part. I've done that before. I just don't do it often enough to keep it relevant. Claude's been a little better today. Only 7 minutes for that one. So we're introducing task dependencies so users can mark which tasks depend on other tasks. Figma design shows a dependencies label, select dependency chips, and search input with drop down results and reference. Okay. Yeah. If I let this go ahead right now, it's going to break because I don't have the server side concepts built yet. So I guess we're going doing that first. Yeah, I mean, I've got a GitHub action, or like I said, the game library app that is on a GitHub action. It once I make a release, it pushes those changes straight there and swaps it over, and everything's worked fine. And I've done dozens of releases with it so far. So the site's just been solid. So okay, um, so to do this, I need to introduce um, a dependencies on this side. Um, create an associated task type, and that'll be similar to that. Public int. I'm not going to do a compound primary key. Um, int task ID public period dependent. Is it dependent? Dependent? Depend. Dependent. That word never looks right. No. Uh, what's the right word for that? Yeah, because this is not. Yeah. So I am. What I'm trying to describe here is the things that I am dependent upon. So I am not. I am the child in this relationship. This task from this perspective is the child in this relationship. It has dependencies of other tasks. Um, so they are my dependencies or dependent identifier, dependent task. But I am the child in this relationship, right? I am the dependent. I have a dependency upon them. What? Yeah. Associate task of your child. Well, no, this is the just for the purpose of this. This is the task ID of this. This is why naming is hard. Um, Relationship direction. Because it's not a child task in that form. This is the purpose of this design is to basically give you a warning that you could do a release and still have some tasks that are outstanding. You can still choose not to have it. So I don't want to make it like this is a subtask. They're not subtasks. They're related in that there might be things that you can't leave behind. So you should be aware of them. So I don't want to get too far into the parent-child relationship. Otherwise, that describes a different thing, right? Because it's not a child task. This is not a child task of another task, right? This is, hey, you have. Mm, pen. So no, I get it. That's why I'm stuck on it, right? I'm trying to think about how I'm defining what this actually is, but it's not a child. Um, um, Morning, Darren. How you doing? How are things? Um, so from this design, I'm saying, hey, to do this, when this task is being worked on, if you finish this task and you say, yeah, this is going in the release, it should warn you if these tasks are still pending and are not included in this release because they are kind of, they are, they're not dependent. Dependencies is a bad word as well because, okay, refresh it then. Um, Associated. I think that's why I went with associated here. They're associated. There's nothing stopping you from proceeding. Well, it should be a blocker, but it's not going to force the block. It's going to say, by the way. Um, and I think I don't want to. I don't at this stage. I don't want to introduce the concept of a blocking thing there. If if that's actually a feature that comes through design when people test this, then I'd be willing to implement it. But I want to validate that before I force it. They're not subtasks though. Hot dog man. Those are not subtasks because they are other tasks that are associated in behavior or functionality or whatever. Like one of those could be, um, for example, one of those might be new SQL Server, right? Um, which you might consider a very important thing. One of them might be increase the RAM, just in case. Um, yeah, let's change that. Let's see that. Okay, let's see what happens. I've got to be careful on my language here, though, right? So, again, I don't bring up every search on the screen. I'll type it off screen. It's fine. Um, actually, actually, let's do this. Uh, so I've got a project in. Oh, Lady of Code, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome in. Hope you are well. How was your stream? And what were you working on today? Relearning of 3JS. Oh, fun. JavaScript, not my cup of tea. So today I am working on more Kaizu. Kaizu is my project management platform I've been building for a while. I am focused right this second on identifying tasks that are associated with a task, so that when we get to the release side of things, um, if a task hasn't been completed and you have I'm trying to avoid the word dependency because it's a poor choice of word, but the idea being that you say, hey, by the way, there's other tasks that haven't been completed. You might not want to do this release, right? So kind of prompting rather than stopping. Always maybe have fun cutting your wood. So I'm tinkering around with the wording here of whether it's associated, dependencies, etc. So yeah. But welcome in. Thank you for the raid. Thank you very much for the raid. Um, um, yeah. So the way my stream works, for those new to the stream, I'm happy to talk about what I do. Did you get the upload a links pack? Probably not. I don't mess around with a lot of refinement on my stream these days. I don't try and so I don't include things. So I've turned off tons of stuff. So I get no noises. There's no music. There's no fanfare, etc. on anything. So yeah. Ah, I probably used them a long time ago. Yeah, yeah. In the cards below. Yeah, yeah. They probably were there. So again, I kind of becoming a thing that I just don't do anything else but get the stream and that's it. So as much as I love to develop, as much as I like to get code done, the stream is open to chat if you want to talk about the software development, if you want to talk about designs I have. This application is a large application that I've been building over the course of the last 2 years, with very little breaks. It is a distributed system, with many databases, many pieces. So it is something that I can discuss at length, and I'm happy to discuss it at length. But it is there for people to ask questions, and it doesn't matter whether you've been doing this for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 months, 5 years. Everyone. No one uses it right now. The what I'm aiming towards right this second is getting my workflow figured out. So, hold on. Let's make it build and run again. I can demo it a little better. Is again, because of the size of it, there's a lot of moving parts. There's over 20 projects that have to start, plus all the supporting pieces for the databases, etc. that starts. So there's a lot of pieces moving to get the system running. But give that a second. So Kaizu is about getting delivery done, right? So it's you take initiatives, you go to planning, you go to implementation, then you go to delivery. So the focus is on trying to make these pieces relevant to the people who use them at the right points, and make sure that you don't have to, someone who's looking at initiatives doesn't have to care about how it's being implemented. They care about the ideas being delivered. So being able to transparently present that information without lots of meetings, lots of questions, etc. Once you go from initiatives, you go into planning, you start to really dig into the details, you figure out the requirements, you figure out how you want something to work, the acceptance criteria, etc. And then developers and deploy and delivery teams can actually go off and implement your designs, and work towards that in their own focused area with very little blur between the other pieces, and then the delivery can be managed separately. So what I've been working on, an initiative is a piece with a business objective, like this is why we're doing this. That should be something that the developers and anyone looking at the initiative as a whole understands, and that's what their goal is. So it's creating that message and making sure that it's understood to everyone involved. From there, you drive down into deliverables, and deliverables are the actual pieces we break down. I'm avoiding things like stories, epics, etc., because it doesn't align. They align, but not in the same way. So now a deliverable has a goal, so individual whys for each deliverable, and then requirements are added to deliverables. So in this case, task state lifecycle hardening, and then so as a product manager, I'd be building out the requirements, and in here these would be a bit more rich. These would have acceptance criteria. These would have whatever's necessary. We'd attach mock-ups, etc. in here. If there's meetings, I intend to introduce Google Meet and Teams add-ins, so they will actually allow you to schedule and trigger meetings from within here, so that you can actually capture the output from them and hold them in there. So if meetings happen on a specific project, you can create them from within the application and track that they happened, and then automatically pull people who are involved into that meeting. Again, trying to minimize the amount of back and forth and discussion that happens in any given project over how much is done and whatnot. So the product manager builds out the requirements, and then when they're ready, they move it to ready for review, and then the implementation, this would show up in review. So now as a developer, if I'm working on a team and I've got some downtime, whatever, anything in review that shows there is for me to look at, right? That's something we're going to talk about soon. So take a few minutes, go and look at what's coming. So this presents it in this form. Here's the requirements. And these tasks then can be added by the developers, the development team, when we come to planning. So the idea here is the product manager would say, hey, we need to meet on planning and deliverables. So let's go through this. Here's the requirements. They present it. Eventually the whys will show in here, right? The initiative why and the deliverable why, etc. And discuss this, and then the team can go and add the tasks. And tasks for me are the technical pieces. They're the, oh, we need to add a new screen. We need to add this service. And you can break them down as granularly or as large as you want, but they're in the aim of slicing the application up. But these are the technical pieces. And from there, they work through the backlog. You can, estimate them. Right now, it's an estimate. There's no hours or points on there. It's just an estimate. You can decide what that number means to you. And then you can assign it to someone. Right now, you can assign it to someone. And then when it's assigned to a sprint or a Kanban board, as it is right this second, you can go in here and view the cards and then work through the system here. So what I'm trying to do is get to that point of delivery. I've been working on adding the references, so you can add. So FT3 is this task now. This is based on the project that the task is attached to. And then, delivery will be, I want to create a release, and here's the tasks that go into that release, and that will then show me on the planning screen, oh, by the way, these are in this release, and these are in this release, etc. So a product manager doesn't have to go and ask questions. They can see it. Ultimately, I'm going to introduce Kanban boards at every level. So you can see where the tasks are for your deliverables and where your deliverables are for your initiatives, so that you don't have to go in and drill down every time. So that's the design. And again, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on it, even if it's like, that is a terrible idea, that won't work, I'm open to that, as long as you can give me something to work with. So yeah, so that's Kaizu. So what we're talking about right this second is adding tasks in, associated tasks or reference tasks or whatever. They're not parent-child, they're not dependents, because it's more for a warning. Oh, by the way, there is associated tasks with this, and I think the wording I'm using there is probably my answer. There are associated tasks. The problem there using associated projects and associated projects is more of a tight coupling of, here, by the way, this is, well, it's more of a tag system, I suppose, for projects. Yeah. So, and Von Explainer, sorry, I did not say hello. My apologies. Thank you very much for coming along with the raid. Appreciate it very much. Okay, so I'm going to go with associated tasks. It's the cleanest thing for right now. It makes sense. I'm using the word already. It does hold weight. So I have associated task and logical introduction to your logic. We'll do. So for anyone's reference as well, I am not a new .NET developer. I'm not doing this from a position of necessarily naivety. I've been a developer for almost 30 years. I've been a .NET developer for most of that career. So this is just years of me dealing with tools like Jira and working with teams to decide that, I want to try doing this my way. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? I'll see the flaws and I'll understand more. I'll understand more about the pipeline and get to be better as a developer. And I also get to play with a lot of technology in this. So it's fine. So associated tasks. Yeah. I'm not. I want to resolve that. I can't call it associated task because, yeah. I kind of don't want to do. Did I do it here? No. Okay. Quirk of my system, but a consistent quirk of my system. If you see ID and identifier, ID is an internal table ID. It's just an ID that can be used in that particular context to reference that record. Identifier is a GUID that is going to be consistent across the entire system. So you could have a task in the tasks context that has ID 1 with this GUID. But in the next context, in the view context, it might be ID 54 with that GUID. So it's a way of being able to port the data and move it around and switch it around, but also have that shared identifier that I'm not building a table dependency upon the structure. So identifier is the UID. ID is the incrementing. Yeah. So in this case, yeah, task ID would be the ID of the task, and it would be the table, the auto incrementing field. Yeah. I have had it argued that I could just use the GUID as the ID and get rid of the need for that, and that could be somewhat of my historical um, SQL Server fear of GUIDs not being as easily indexed or searched or whatever. But I can change that later on if I need to. Again, that's the beauty of having the ID on the table. I can drop that if I need to and just use the identifier. But yeah, in this case, I don't want a compound primary key, so I'm going to add an ID on this table regardless and have that. Prototypes. I like the theory of having identifiers that show up in interfaces, in UIDs that aren't the database key identifier, but are in name reference. Yeah. Yes. Project next. So one thing to know about the project overall is I do heavily rely upon Claude at this point for the UI. It's not my talent. It's not something that I engage very well with. The front end is something I always struggle with. So the idea is that between Claude and Figma and UX Pilot potentially, I have tools available to do the designs into which I can build something and then get my vision across so that later on, if this becomes an actual product that makes enough money to hire someone, then I can hire someone who is a UI UX expert to build an entire design and make it look way better. But for right now, it's more about getting the concepts there, and Claude helps me do that quickly. I do not use any AI to generate code on the back end. That is all handwritten. However, I do use Claude. I have a project in Claude AI in which I kind of brainstorm ideas and go back and forth and keep that context so I can keep consistent conversations there to help me figure out some of the nuances of what I want to design. So that is how I'm using AI in my process. And it has sped me up. Not of late. It's having a few problems of late. Yeah. Great. Okay. So on task now, we'll have associated tasks. We need to add some behavior here. The way that this works is these classes you're looking at right now, these entities in the domain, these are the objects that get stored in the database and kind of the behavior of that object, right? So they're kind of aggregates. they publish domain events, etc. There's a lot going on when you change something in this system right a second. Um, okay, so update. Where's projects? Update status. Associate with sprint. Where's update projects? Is that on here still? Associate projects. Did I miss it? Associate. I seem to no longer. Oh no, that's projects that are task ID. Do I not use associated projects? When did I get rid of that? Oh well. Fair enough. So in the application layer, we're going to do tasks, add task. And then here we're going to concerning task. I'm adding task with. Apparently, I got rid of the linking of a task to a project a while ago. Why would that be? So a task can have a requirement it can be linked to, or it can be standalone. Oh, and I assign it to a project. So, oh, is that how I changed it out? One of know one of the challenges of building this much as a solo dev is there's a lot to keep in your mind, a lot of context, which is why the diagram, right? The diagram helps me point to things, it helps me talk about things. Um, yeah. um, with associated tasks. That task is um, added. Added is the wrong word there because you can't test that in a unit test, but that's fine. Um, I would probably need to default my fact autocomplete to do that. If I just ran that, those would pass, by the way. Don't know why, but they pass because there's no assertion, which means they're valid, which is probably not good. Why is data grip not actually starting anymore? Data grip is locked up somewhere. There we go. That's better. So initially, I was using SQL Server. Last month, I switched over everything to use Postgres, which was a bit of a pain, but we got there in the end. It worked. Postgres being cheaper, less licensing requirement, and yeah, and it's working pretty well. You can see there's a lot of different databases. CT is Control Tower, LS is Liquid Sky. Kaizu is made up of those two pieces. Liquid Sky plus Control Tower equals Kaizu. Control Tower right now just manages subscriptions. So when you create a new user, it goes and registers a subscription for that user and defaults you to subscribed. If we remove that subscription, you can't log in. Can't remember whether they implemented the ability to delete a subscription, but that should be there. I say we because Mojo. So although Liquid Sky is 100% me, Mojo helped me build Control Tower and do those pieces as well. So it is not a wholly 100% me project. Fredberg, good morning. How you doing? So tasks now should have associated tasks. Where did you put associated tasks? Oh, there it is. Norp. Interesting that I cached that. So, okay. I do remember handling delete. Nice. Well, one day we'll test it properly. Sorry, dog. Am I bothering you? I have a dog laying right under my desk. That's what hiring him was for. Okay, so private add task. I also need to go through and do a passive naming conventions because, yeah. Arrange. Thank you for doing the shout out, Stoney. Appreciate it. There's more people in here. I've not had the chance to hang out in the stream, so I don't know a lot of what's done there, but 3JS today. I know 3JS is quite JavaScript. Lady of Chill Code. Another good chill stream to go hang out in. So we will do arrange, and then we'll do subject equals new handler, and this requires a repository and a what? Cache reference allocator. Read only iRepository. I look forward to seeing it though. That'll be fascinating. So this is going to be a mock of the repository, and we need a mock of the task reference allocator. We'll just call that allocator, I think. No, for task. The concept of hold on, allocate next. Regarding our conversation yesterday, Mojo, this is actually one where this could actually be replaced with a method. And I do have that style somewhere where I inject a method. Can't remember where right this second, but I do it. That's exactly one that doesn't necessarily need an interface because it can just be a method that we pass in and then define. I think the problem I had with that was the where you do that. So allocator dot allocate next. I dot is tenant identifier. I dot is project identifier. What is this one? Oh, I got any cancellation token. Returns. Reference. There's no way I would have typed alligator without having to replace alligator at least once. I can see that. And now I've said it out loud, I'm probably will type alligator next time. So, all right, Fragwell, thank you very much for coming, hanging out for a bit. Appreciate it. Have a great day. I have learned that coming up in May, I probably have a full day of streaming available to me during the work week, which is good. Tenant identifier. So I will have some longer streams coming up soon. Or rather days for me to code and potentially streaming, not necessarily full stream days. JetBrains Rider is not responding. Dump threads. Yeah, possible coming up soon. Which string reference equals phx 101. Returns. Oh, that's a task reference. That's that. There you go. I need to prove this. I'll check your email later. Now, the reason I chose to do this today, because I'm really excited to do the GitHub integration, by the way. So once this is done, I can then use this more, but that also then I can go and do the GitHub integration, which we were looking at last night as well. And the idea being that when you go into a task, any branches that are done, you'll be able to see them, and you'll be able to see any merges. So that whole behavior will be there, and that will again benefit the release, the delivery thing, where you say, oh, these branches are not merged, or these branches are pending PRs. So that's kind of that point. So that should be fun. So what we're going to see is repository dot. Oh, actually, private task dot. A task in this context is one of my tasks. System task is the alias for the actual async task stuff. That is by design. So I can use my language here and not have to alias out my own domain. But the problem is I've referred to these as tasks. If I can come up with a better name for what these are not stories though. These are a component of a story. They are a component of the requirements. So these are not stories. These should be, hey, I need to add a table here, or hey, I need to add a new screen here and interact with this table or whatever. They're more tasks that you can break down and get knocked out. So they're not stories. So right now they're tasks, but it does conflict with the language that I'm using, which is a natural challenge. Results equals null. It's not just avoid calling stories; they don't align exactly to a story. These are, and even in Jira, they're tasks. Like if you task out a story in Jira, which you can do, it's messy, but you can do it. Um, then or subtask or however you, those are subtasks, I suppose. You can do that. Um, so we're going to do repository dot dot received add async arg dot is task t as the t dot uh, title equals title. I gotta remember the purpose of this test is not to validate that I'm adding all the fields, so I can do the bare minimum here, but at the same time I'm trying to be a little bit um, I actually did create a helper the other day. I was tinkering around to see if I could describe fixtures properly. I do have the concept of this being built. Um, so I do have the ability to do this. I just in this case, I'm not doing the build here. I'm doing the what happens if I call add. So I think we can get rid of the non-asynchronous version of this at this point. It's just pretty much always going to do it this way. Again, my method of unit testing is not necessarily consistent with others, but it works for me. So I trust it. That's what matters. Description, project identifier, null, null, cancellation token dot none, and then that's it. Okay, so it just needs source user identifier there. It's already too warm in this room. Okay. So this will that will pass repository dot task dot associated tasks dot is not empty. That'll fail immediately. So I haven't written the code. I'm now making me. I'm doing. I'm making myself write the code I need. Right. That's the purpose of this. Yeah. So we did add the task, but we did not associate anything. So yeah, this added fine. So yeah, there we go. But anyway, unfortunately, that is all the time I have for now. As just as a heads up, my Wednesday evening streams will be shorter. They will start earlier and end earlier, unless something happens. I have been able to return to karate, so instead of those 3-hour Wednesday streams, now I'm back to an hour and a half on Wednesday evenings. I'll try and do them that way for a while. But yeah, it's all the time I get. I get basically 4.5 hours a week of stream time. I wanted to get to implementing this today because this would have been a really good step forward, because then I could have pivoted. However, I will return on Monday. By Monday, don't have any plans over the weekend. So by Monday, I would intend to have GitHub integration working. Coffee is the only dev streamer that's doing anything that I can go to right this second, I think. In my list anyway. So I think we'll go raid Coffee. So thank you very much for the raid, Lady of Code, again. If you're still around, not everyone who joined Lady of Code coming in from that raid, very much appreciate coming in and hanging out. Thank you for the chat, as always. Again, I will return on Monday, where I will hopefully be at the point of adding GitHub integration, and then from there, basically I'm going to start working on that release screen, right? So we're going to start I apply my permission to start stream. Sorry, I kind of like, eating too much. So yeah, Mongol, thank you very much for coming and hanging out as well. So yeah, I'll be back on Monday. Hopefully we'll have GitHub integration working there, and really the project starts to take shape once we start that release screen. So take care all, have a great rest of your day. If you haven't followed him yet, recommend following Stony as well. If you like .NET development, PHP development, media development, Stony's building No Mercy, which is a media application of epic proportions, and streams that hopefully twice a week. But it is a great stream to go and hang out in. He also streams for a lot longer than I do. So yes, epic. Well, let's go raid Coffee. Coffee Then Code has been working on his bot platform, which is amazing. Yeah, so I will be back on Monday. So take care all. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye.